Okay, I'm just going to run through with you my sort of process on editing cosplay images like this one with Stacey that I shot at the weekend. As you can see, I've already got an idea of how I want the finished images to look, and it's based on some fan art work that both me and Stacey liked for Rogue, who's from the X-Men universe or whatever. I don't really know much about it, so it's been a bit of a learning curve for me as well. So what I'm going to show you is basically how I start things off. My computer's running a bit slow because I've got the recording going on it, so bear with me, this is a bit frustrating. All I do in Lightroom is get it sort of more of a natural kind of base level for me to start in Photoshop. So let me show you. This is how it was straight from camera. As you can see, it's a bit yellow, and it's a bit dark and it feels a bit dingy. So all I do is, let me just reset that for you so you can see. All I have done is bring up the exposure and play around with the highlights, shadows and black, whites, etc. Now I find that using these instead of the contrast is a lot more natural and a lot less destructive. If you show you can see the sort of, it goes a bit kind of MySpacey poppy, so ignore that. So I just use the highlights, so that will be your highlights, your shadows, your whites and your blacks, and this just makes a more of a natural kind of look. So I did bring down the whites and the highlights. Actually, I brought all of them down because it just gives it a bit of contrast and kind of a bit more real looking. I hope that makes sense. I've also brought up the clarity. Now, as the name suggests, that's how clear it is. As you can see, if you drop it all the way down, it's horrendous. Dehaze I don't touch for this because we're not shooting outside and we've got no sort of effects going on, like we haven't used any smoke or anything like that, so we don't need that really. Vibrance. Now the difference between vibrance and saturation is that the vibrance is more of a kind of natural subtle boost in the color, and saturation has got this sort of more gaudy look to it. As you can see, it goes, it brings up the whole lot and just looks a bit naff really. So let's put that away. Sorry. To undo in Lightroom, you're pressing Ctrl-Z, just to give you an idea. I'm sorry, this is a bit convoluted, so bear with me. Vibrance, so as you can see, if I take that down, it doesn't get rid of the colours completely, whereas saturation would if you boiled it down. It desaturates and tones down the colours. And then vibrance, as you can see, even all the way up, it doesn't have that very stark, crazy, in your face psychedelic look. So let's put that back to around 10. Now at the moment that will do, because I'm going to do most of my editing of the colours in Lightroom. So we're going to ignore the Photoshop even, so we're going to ignore the curves, we're going to ignore all this and this and split tone, and we might come back to that later when we come back into Lightroom for the final tidying up, but for now we're not. We are going to have a look at detail. Now as you can see, I've sharpened it a bit. Let me show you. So that was it straight off the camera. It's in focus, it's sharp, but obviously when dealing with humans and even on fast shutter speed, things move, people move, you breathe. So I do like to bring up the sharpening. I keep my radius and detail sort of at quite natural levels, but you can play around with that and see what you feel like. It depends what you're shooting and how you started off with. So masking I leave because we're going to do our skin editing in Photoshop. Noise reduction even, sorry. So as you can see, the start, it's fairly noisy. I mean, I was shooting at, what was it, 640 ISO, so that's, that's not too high, but it is high enough for this. So obviously I want to take out some of that noise and just to make it look a bit cleaner. This is what we're trying to achieve, so I'll just bump it around 20. You've still got a little bit of grain, come on, you've still got a little bit of grain, enough for sort of keep the natural skin textures, etc., but you just tidy it a bit. Again, keep your detail around 50. again, it depends what you're shooting and what you want to do, but you know, play around with that color again. Now this is really helpful, and it's something, this is still fairly quite new in Photoshop. I think it's only been about a year, or Lightroom, it's only been about a year. So if I go over to a piece of the black, actually let me show you, let's go to that bit, you might be able to see it a bit better. If we bring that down, you can see in the black how the black's made up, obviously, of all the different colours. And whilst, you know, that's real and fine, it's not really how we look at things, and it looks very untidy, especially when you come to print. And if you're printing large, fortunately we probably won't be printing that big, but just on the safe side, and anyway it just looks a bit more tidy and professional, I like to bring it up. Now you can bring it up all the way, it doesn't really do anything, but if it works at around 20 or whatever, do the minimal number that you can with this. Again, leave that as it is, and we're not going to touch these for the time being. Just a note, defringe is really helpful if you're shooting outside. You've probably noticed in your images you get sort of this like purple line kind of thing. You've got it a bit here, but that's because her wig is bright white. It's sort of, it's distortion from the lens, and that's where you get rid of it. So we'll cover that some other time. Okay, so what we're doing now that I'm sort of happy with that being a sort of natural level, as it were, a natural base, we're going to run it through Photoshop. So right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop. Right, so now we're in Photoshop. I'm going to do a few things first. The first thing I do is I'm going to tidy up her skin. So we're going to zoom in. Fortunately, Stacey's got really nice skin to start with, and she's very good with her makeup, so she knows how to cover it to make my job easier. So we're using the patch tool up here, which is here. You've got your spot healing, your healing brush, patch tool, content aware, and red eye tool. We're just using the patch tool as I find it the easiest, because you can be quite, you know, you can work quite quickly. Okay, so I use a special fashion action, an action that's by a company called Fashion Actions for my skin editing, as this just saves me so much time. I will in another tutorial go through with you some different ways of skin editing, but it all depends on your finished product and what you want to do. And there's loads of tutorials out there, loads, and there's 100 different ways to do it. So what I do is use this, and I'll put in the link for this. It's a paid for action, so unfortunately I can't just share it with you. But we are going to do a portrait. We're at 16-bit, and you just basically let it run. So it's really handy. You can see what it's doing down here. Usually it runs a bit fast, but as I'm recording, the computer's using a lot of its resources, as it were. Right, okay, so great, it's run, and we have our detail, so as you can see, our skin smooth layer, which I'll show you in a minute. And if you take that colour off, she goes very sort of, you know, really sharp and intense. So we're on skin smooth. When using the mask, we're going to use our brush tool. We're going to set it all the way up to 100. We've got a quite soft brush tool. We're going to bring it up a bit. You can also use the brackets key, the square brackets key, to make it bigger, so you're not clicking a load of things. We're just going to bring it in. And again, I'm using my pen tablet for this as opposed to my mouse, as I find it a bit more accurate, and it's just easier. I mean, it's all about what works for you. I'm going to keep the opacity at 100, and I'm not going to set pen pressure for this because we want it nice and even. And I'm just brushing over the skin. You can't really see much of a difference because Stacey's got lovely made up skin anyway. So let's just, but I'm ignoring the features, because if you do that, you see what I mean. This isn't the best way to edit skin, but it gives a nice result, especially when you've got a lot. This is really handy for my SG stuff because, as you can imagine, photoshopping 60 odd images gets really, it takes up a lot of time, so this is where this is really handy. So you can see that looks quite nice now, so it has that sort of made up effect. It still, in my opinion, looks a bit fake, but we're going to have a look at it at the end overall. So what we're going to do is, for this type of action, we now merge down with our colour. This is really cool. We're going to use a mixer brush tool. We're not going to change any of the settings up here as it's preset with this action. And basically what this does is we are going to just lightly brush over just to sort of blend in the colours. This helps take away some of the sort of shadows, which then sort of change the face shape a bit. Just really lightly, like this is where I think it's good to sort of, if you haven't sort of do a bit of practice with drawing or understanding face shapes and anatomy, because you want to still make it look real and you don't want to block out things that make a face look real, i.e. like the bag, like the shape under the eyes that often people think are just bags, but if you get rid of them she's going to look ridiculous. So we just want to tidy this up a bit just to bring it out a bit. So like I said, that's still, she doesn't, it's, you still got a sort of plasticky, like I said, this isn't the best way of doing it. So we're just going to bring down the whole group to about 50, I think. Let's have a look. So if we take that away and then come back, take away, you can see there's like a few lines, and this just brings it out a bit. So I think that's kind of all right. Now what I'm going to do is let's save that, so we've got this in case we ever need to come back and bring in these skin edits. So for this now, I'm going to get rid of this. We're going to merge visible. Doop, doop. So we got this nice one image. This is our background image. We're not going to ever edit this because we need this forever. Okay, first things first. I have a vague idea of what I want this to look like in the end. So I'm going to open up the last images I was using. When you're using Lightroom and Photoshop, it will automatically save it as a TIFF. I wouldn't change that, and then when you're ready, save it as a PSD as well, but a TIFF will keep all the layers as well. As you can see, I've done quite a bit of work on this already, and this is how I want it to look. So first things first, we're going to go arrange, 2 up vertical, and bring it side by side. And what we want to pinch from here is our background layers. First of all, we're going to go boop. Oh my gosh, see, look, it's gone crazy. We're going to just line that up, but we'll probably change the lining up of it, and we're going to get rid of that layer mask for now. Let's put these back into tabs so we can see what we're doing. We're then going to just hide this, and we're going to do a quick selection round Stacey. Now there's a few ways of doing this. I know some people use the pen tool, but I prefer the lasso tool, and I'll explain why in a minute. Let me just see. Right, so we're just going to quickly cut her out. Okay, so we've got our capture now. We're now going to use the select and mask tool that I was talking about. Like I said, Photoshop's got very, very clever now and intuitive. We've left the armhole, and I'll show you why in a minute. So what we're going to do, edge detection. This is really great, especially for when it comes to like the really tricky parts of your hair. We're just going to put that up to about 2 pixels because we don't want it too much, because again we're going to use the blending tool for this. We're going to smooth it out because, you know, straight lines and all that, and we're going to shift edge just a tad outwards again, because then we're going to blend it in to see how she looks. and we don't want it too cut in and feather. This just makes it really soft and not too abrupt. Again, it stops it from looking like you've just cut it out of a magazine. And contrast we're just going to leave, so let's just let that run through. We're then going to toggle our group. There's two ways of doing this, so I'll show you this way first. We're going to select here, down here, we've made a mask, but it's just the wrong way around, so let's just double click on the mask and we're going to hit invert. Ta-da! She's in our background. The nice thing about this is that we haven't actually got rid of any information on either the background, so we can start moving things about. I can't decide. I like that. But again, I'll probably end up fiddling and adjusting this about 20 more times before I settle on something. So I've also got some curves going on, and I'm not sure. Right, delete layer mask. What has that done? Okay, so the curves, let me take that off. I've just brought out, basically, you can see I've wanted to make it more reds and yellow, like orangey, more fiery, because it goes with her outfit and stuff. So that's our background, our basic background. So we're just going to leave that for a moment. The next, for tidying up, we can do that at the end. The next thing I'm going to do, let's go back to our vertical, is the next thing when I was sort of playing around is that I wanted to bring out the costume colours a bit more. So like the yellows and green and her reds, they're her iconic rogue colours. So in this group, that's what we've got. So what we're going to do is, because I'm not doing it again, because I can't entirely, you know, is we're going to drag this over, but I'm going to run through with you every single one. So let's go back to consolidate tabs, and we're going to one by one slowly start again. So give me a second. Okay, so here we've got quite a few curve layers. So first of all, we started off with this bottom one, and if I turn it off, you can see we're sort of, the image is quite like flat. Stacey looks quite flat. So what we're trying to do here is just bring it out, but I'm not entirely happy with this. So let's have a look. Yep, no, that's her face. Yep. This is key, is that you're labeling. I haven't labeled these very well at all, so I need to sort of double check what they're all doing. So this is our first lot, is her costumes, her costume. So we're just going to blank out the area of her face. Again, we're going to use opacity 100, and we're going to just go like this. See, it's not so stark on her face. And we're using a really soft brush. I'll show you hardness all the way down, soft round brush, as it naturally feathers. And again, later on we'll go in and tidy up the details. It's the sort of thing I do last, just because that's how I work. Okay, curves. But this is for her costume. This is a little bit dark for my liking, but we're gonna adjust that in a minute. So this one is so that was our sort of our shadows layer, and this is our highlights. As you can see, it's just bringing out the highlights a bit, but I kind of want to bring it up as we're sort of quite close to her. So we're gonna bring this up and bring this up again, and as you can see, it's made her face quite stark, and now I kind of want to bring that down. So instead of doing another layer, we're going to select our mask, and this time we are going to set it down to about 50. Right, that would do, and eventually we might come back to it and see how we feel. But we've got a few other curves left, so let's while we're here, shadows, highlights. Yep, spelled that right. And this, yes, this is our sort of, I believe, no, this is, I don't know what this is. This is our contrast, that's it. So like I said in Lightroom, I don't like using Lightroom for contrast. It's too destructive, and you lose a lot of detail. So I've slightly, as you can see, brought the highlights up, and I've slightly brought the black shadows down, and I've also, you can't really tell, but I've moved this last notch in a bit, which just gives that black, that more inky look to it. You can, if I show you, if you bring it all the way up, you get like this crazy effect, but you just got that sort of inky look about it. So let's just slightly notch that back. There we go. This looks particularly nice when printing. It comes out really like a nice glossy black. So this is your contrast layer. Okay, vibrance. Remember how I talked about vibrance in Lightroom? So again, now it doesn't look too bad on here, but if we go back to this one and I turn that vibrance off, you can see her face has got this really orangey yellow pinky tint, which is partly due to the selective layer, selective color layer, but we're going to come back to that. But this one, it's just a bit too pink, and instead of going crazy with there's 100 ways to do it, but this is definitely the best way, and this will save you a lot of tears. We're going to use a vibrance layer. So let's go back to that. See, on this it's not too bad, so if I turn that off, she goes far to whatever. So let's keep that off for a moment and we'll see how we go, because we might, by the time we've added all our other elements, we might come back to it and decide we don't like it. So yeah, exactly, case in point, we've done our selective color. Now with my selective color layer, let me just go through it with you. Nope, sorry. So you're clicking on, when you click on the little picture, you edit the thing, otherwise you're doing blend modes, and we'll come back to that another time. So with main parts of a costume are green, yellow and red. So I wanted to make the reds really, really red. And as you can see, when it's turned off, it's got more of a browny colour, but we just wanted to bring out the red. So we're using selective colour, and I selected reds. Yellows, I brought down just a little bit. And, oh, I didn't use green.
Threat has been detected.
What? What? Okay, I apologise for that. I don't know what that is. I didn't use greens. What did I use? Cyans. What did I use? Oh my gosh. Well, clearly I didn't use that much, which is great. But this, again, this is really handy, and a lot more. You can tune it a lot better than you could in Lightroom. You can do this in Lightroom, but you don't have as many options, and you can't break it down as much. So this is something I definitely prefer. But again, so we could mask out her face here, or we could do this. So I think what we're going to do is mask out her face, because when we put that vibrance back on, it's still far too grey. So let's actually get rid of that, and then let's do that, another mask. And again, we're gonna keep this soft, because I'm not sure how much we want to take out, because we just want to take out that slight red pinky tint. And I think that looks better. You can sort of see it's kept sort of the natural integrity. I'm going to leave that for now. We'll see how we get on in a minute. So let's just go in and sort of tidy this up, and I'll show you why. Let me just explain why I haven't cut these out yet. So the thing is, if you cut them out, she'll look really cut and paste. And even though this is a fantasy background, we want to still believe that she's there. So like with this one, if I've sort of masked in some of shadows that we got from the original image. So let me just turn that off and that off. You can sort of see vaguely this shadow that runs up along here, and again there we go, that's better. You can see this shadow that runs up along here and sort of down here, that sort of occurs naturally when you're standing in front of something. So instead, so when I cut this out, I've then sort of painted that shadow back in, and that's the beauty of using a black background in this instance. I've also photoshopped out a lovely zip that ran all the way down there, but there we go. So the thing is, so what I'm going to do is, on our mask layer, I am going to select it, and we're going to go right in and we're going to select it. So as you can see, like, whilst that, you know, is plausible, sorry, I'm pointing when I should be doing it, whilst that is plausible, it doesn't look quite right, does it? So let's cut this out and we can sort of do it together, because that will give us a much more, it will give us a better view of what we need to do, because like I said, even though this is fantasy, we are still trying to create a level of believability and polish. See, that doesn't look too bad, because the background that we've got in our special group is still quite dark, but this isn't dark enough. You're drawing too much attention to it. So whether that might show up or not is not the issue. We've drawn too much attention to it. So we're going to get our mask, our paintbrush, and again we're going to keep it low. Sorry, someone's just leaving outside. And we're just going to basically paint that back in. So yeah, that's not too bad. Again, we need to do some tidying up around the hairline. And for that, all I'm going to do is we're going to go to our mask layer, and we are now going to go to the white, because it matches our main layer colour. So we've got our brush again. We're going to set this like quite low because we're doing hair, and we're going to make it really small. So we're using our left bracket key. Oh, let's zoom all the way in. Oh, what have I done there? And we're just, again, this is why I prefer a pen tool, a tablet pen, because you can use it more like a paintbrush. Like, you can just sort of draw it out and do sort of softer strokes. So this is where it gets tricky. So what we've got here is her white hair, and actually behind that it wasn't black, it was her red hair, but we've got this lovely black sort of line. So we're going to go as small as we can, and we're just going to try and sort of paint that in a bit, just to sort of, so it's not stark, the difference, and hopefully, because it's quite a nice element to it, you know, it still looks quite but it's getting there. I mean, that's a lot better. See if I might change the background a bit, but that's basically it, really. The last thing I'm going to show you is a really quick way of tidying up this hairline. Stacey is actually naturally blonde, but she dyes her hair dark, which it really suits her, but it's not very helpful when you've got a white wig like this. So what I'm going to do, we're going to select our background layer, and we're going to do a bit of hairdressing. And so using the lasso tool again, I am going to start from about here, and I'm just going to do a basic selection of this bit. Nothing, we don't have to do anything too precise. I might have to make that a bit fatter. There we are. And then we're going to do select a mask. Oh no, we're going to smooth this quite a lot. Oh, poor baby outside. Smooth this. We're going to feather a few. Come on, computer, keep going. I believe in you. Why isn't that smoothed enough? There we are. There we are. It's very harsh cut out, but it works. We are then going to press Control Shift J. This then copies that selection. As you can see, why is it giving this hideous background? Why? What's it done that for? No, Control J. That's it. You're not going to do Shift J, Control J. This cuts it out and puts it on a new layer for you so you can move it about. We are then going to hit Control T, which is our transform, and we're going to turn it ever so slightly. And we're just going to try and place this over that bit. There we go. So my computer's running really slow as well. It's trying to record everything at the same time. Come on, nudge, nudge, nudge. It's made a bit of a difference. So this is good. And then for this, I'm merging it down, just because that, yeah. And we're going to have to do something about this as well, but we're going to do it slightly differently. This is where sort of having a tablet is really handy. Oh no, not J. We're going to do Control Shift New for a new layer. Let's call it hair, and we're going to get a teeny tiny brush. I have some custom brushes, including hair brushes, but I'm not going to use that. We're going to keep it soft and round, as this isn't a digital painting, and we're going to make it tiny, and we're going to zoom all the way in until she looks like, until it's really pixely, and we're literally going to draw over it. So we're going to pick about that. We're going to select to about 90%. This is where having a pen really works. We're going to select our opacity to pen pressure, and we're going to select, come on, show us what you do. Come on. There we go. But so we're not actually going to select that, so that was a waste of waiting, wasn't it? So we're literally going to try and follow these wisps of hair. It's tedious, but it's very helpful. So we're going to just follow these wisps, literally, and we keep the opacity still quite high but low, in that we then get the sort of the natural progression in tone from the shadow. And we're just going to keep painting over these wisps, and every now and then go back to her hair just to change the colour of it. While you're using your paintbrush, if you press the Alt key, you can then have your colour pick tool. Let's make this a bit smaller. There we are. So we're literally, oh, what's happened here? Why have we got a nice one there? Yeah, we're literally just drawing it in, drawing it in. And that looks a lot better. Like it's not the best, but it's getting there. So it's going to require some, you know, tidying up. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is we're then going to go filter, noise, add noise. We're going to select that bit, and it's hard to see, so let's go all the way in. And what we want to do is basically match it up. It's hard to see because we've reduced the noise, but as you can see, this area is quite smooth. So we're going to just bring it up to, as you can see, even 4 is a bit manic. So let's just bump it around the 2, let it sort of render for a bit, and that looks quite the same, if that, you know, it looks the same noise level, as it were, grain, as it were. So I don't know, this needs a lot of work, so I will come back to you when that's done. Okay, so as you can see, I've tidied up her hair. I have actually used 4 hair layers altogether. I also, with the lasso tool, when I went in really closely, I guess airbrushed out, if you, for want of a better term, the wisps that were coming sort of down here, just so this sort of looks more gradual and more natural, so it could actually be her natural hairline. And I mean, up close you can see that it's not, but for the purposes of this it works. And then again added noise, oh gosh, sorry. Ugh. And then came back and did these areas by her hair where it joins, just to take that out. Even though it's a shadow, it looks a bit too much of a gap, so I've just added in a few more wisps again, and then added some noise. And really, when, unless you're printing humongous for web and stuff, if it looks all right at a view of 25%, you can get away with it, in my experience. Anything else, printing even at 100%, whilst it, you know, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, I will probably go in again and tidy up these bits just to make it blend a bit more, but you don't need to see that whole process. I'll then merge all of these together eventually before we jump it back into Lightroom. So yeah, that's it for now, really. To be honest, I don't know how much I'll change in Lightroom, if anything, and I think I'll just keep it as this. And maybe add a vignette like around the edges to give it a sort of more of an intense sort of frame, framing and etc. But otherwise I think that's it. So yeah, just to overview, we've used selective colour and our curves mainly to help pop out and bring out the features. So separate your highlights, your shadows, and even your mid sort of colours. You can also, let me just point out, I can't remember which one I used. Oh, maybe I didn't in the end. There we go, isn't that fun? No, that was it. In this curves, you can also use the various channels in curves, your red, green and blue channel, to change colours a bit, where I've used in the background. Okay then, I hope that's helpful. I'll shut up now. Bye bye.